Welcome to Moonlit Inc. BL. A BL story written under moonlight. Let's begin. Prologue, thrown into the unknown. The city lights of Caldera blurred behind the tinted car window, but Andrew Evans didn't look back. If he did, he knew he'd see the cold marble foyer again, the one where his mother had stood perfectly still, arms folded, eyes fixed on a spot just over his shoulder as if Andrew himself had already ceased to exist. He'd hear his father's voice, calm and precise, as if reading from a legal document instead of severing a son from his life. You are no longer part of the Evans family. Andrew had always imagined disownment would come with shouting. With slammed doors. With anger loud enough to justify the ache in his chest. But it hadn't. It was quiet. Surgical. Like they were removing something inconvenient. The car slowed at the edge of a bus station 2 hours outside the city. Neon lights buzzed overhead, flickering like they couldn't decide whether to stay on or give up. "This is as far as I go," the driver said, not bothering to look at him as he accepted the thick envelope of cash. Andrew stepped out. One duffel bag. His phone. His laptop. A few $100s wrapped in a rubber band that had already lost its elasticity. That was it. That was what a lifetime of privilege amounted to once love was taken out of the equation. He boarded the first bus heading anywhere that wasn't Caldera. He didn't sleep once during the 12-hour ride. Every bump in the road jolted him awake, heart hammering, half expecting someone to grab his shoulder and tell him there had been a mistake. There wasn't. Brooksville was the final stop, a small town tucked between low mountains and rolling woods. When Andrew stepped off the bus, the morning air hit him all at once. Crisp. Clean. It smelled like pine needles, fresh bread, and something unfamiliar. Possibility. The bed and breakfast he found had peeling wallpaper and a bathtub with a suspicious rust stain shaped vaguely like a question mark. Every night, he shoved a chair beneath the doorknob and slept with his laptop bag clutched to his chest like armor. "I used to sleep on Egyptian cotton sheets," he thought bitterly one night, staring at the ceiling. "Now I'm negotiating with a cockroach for personal space." The locals noticed him immediately. "New around here? Where you from? You running from something?" He learned to answer with the same line every time. "Fresh start." Some nodded like they understood. Some looked at him like they didn't believe a word of it. But no one pressed. And for the first time in his life, no one recognized his last name. There were no whispers of Evans' scandal. No pitying glances. No expectations. Just Andrew. Alone. Anonymous. By the third week, his wallet was a tragedy. Empty except for a faded receipt and a crumpled bus ticket he couldn't bring himself to throw away. He approached the B&B owner, Mrs. Sanchez, as she arranged a tray of blueberry muffins on the counter. The smell alone made his stomach ache. "Ma'am," he said carefully, pride already bruising, "do you know anywhere that might be hiring?" Mrs. Sanchez paused, studying him over her glasses. Her silver hair caught the sunlight, soft and warm instead of sharp. "There's the café-bookstore," she said after a moment, pointing toward the edge of town where the road curved into the woods. "Brandt's Books and Brews. The owner's son runs it now. Lost his father not too long ago. Quiet boy. Kind, though. He might appreciate an extra pair of hands." Hope flared in Andrew's chest, small, fragile, but real. 15 minutes later, he stood in front of a quaint building made of rustic wood and wide windows glowing with warm light. A hand-painted sign swung gently above the door. Brandt's Books and Brews. Brooksville was the kind of town where people waved even if they didn't know you. And stared a little too long if they didn't trust you. Andrew Evans got both as he walked down Main Street. A middle-aged man watering his roses lifted a hand in greeting. A kid on a bike circled him twice like he was something fascinating and possibly dangerous. An elderly woman sitting on a bench squinted at him as if she could read every bad decision he'd ever made just by looking at his face. Friendly, Andrew muttered under his breath. Love this place already. He kept walking, shoulders squared, trying to ignore the exhaustion pulling at his bones. He passed a bakery that smelled like sugar and butter, a hardware store with a bell that jingled when customers came and went, and a tiny movie theater plastered with hand-painted posters that looked decades old. Everything here felt small. But not empty. Alive. Warm. Human. Not like Caldera, where glass towers reached for the sky and swallowed people whole, where money insulated cruelty and silence passed for love. At a crosswalk, Andrew stopped and inhaled deeply. Okay, he told himself. New town. New life. New chance. Don't mess this up. When he reached Brandt's Books and Brews, he slowed. The building looked like something out of a postcard, wide windows glowing with amber light, wood-paneled walls softened by ivy, a chalkboard sign promising today's brew, maple spice latte. Through the window, he caught glimpses of polished bookshelves, cozy armchairs, and the gentle hiss of an espresso machine releasing steam. It felt safe. Too safe, almost. Andrew hesitated with his hand on the door. Then he pushed it open. A small chime rang overhead. Just a second, came a voice from behind the counter. Andrew stepped inside, letting the warmth wash over him. Coffee, paper, something faintly sweet. The kind of place where time slowed whether you wanted it to or not. The voice cut off. He looked up, and froze. Behind the counter stood a man about his age, dark hair tied back loosely at the nape of his neck, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He wore an apron smudged with flour and ink, like he couldn't decide whether he belonged more to the cafe or the bookstore. Hazel eyes met Andrew's, sharp with curiosity, then softening as recognition clicked into place. Oh, the man said. You must be the new guy. Andrew blinked. Is it that obvious? The man smiled, lips tugging upward in quiet amusement. In Brooksville? Someone sneezes and everyone knows whether it was seasonal or emotional. Andrew huffed out a laugh before he could stop himself. Right. Of course. He shifted his weight. I was told you might be hiring. The man studied him, not rudely, but carefully. Like he was taking in details Andrew himself had stopped noticing, the worn sneakers, the tight grip on his duffel strap, the exhaustion sitting just beneath the surface. Actually, he said slowly, yeah. I am. Relief hit Andrew so hard his knees nearly buckled. I run this place alone now, the man continued. Ever since my dad passed. It's a lot. Oh. Andrew swallowed. I'm sorry about your dad. The man nodded, expression flickering, grief, then acceptance. Thanks. He stepped out from behind the counter and held out a hand. Up close, Andrew noticed faint circles under his eyes too. A shared tiredness. I'm Spencer Brandt. Andrew shook his hand. Warm. Steady. Reassuring in a way that caught him off guard. Andrew Evans. He braced himself. Waited for the pause. The flicker of recognition. The subtle shift in expression that always followed his name back in Caldera. It didn't come. Instead, Spencer tilted his head slightly. So. Tell me, are you comfortable with books? Coffee? Heavy lifting? Mild chaos? Andrew blinked. Then answered honestly. I can read, he said. I can attempt coffee. Heavy lifting. I'll try not to die. And chaos is, he hesitated, then shrugged. Familiar. Spencer laughed, not politely. Not briefly. A real laugh that lit his face and made something warm unfurl in Andrew's chest. Good enough, Spencer said. You're hired. Andrew stared. Wait, seriously? Seriously? Spencer grinned. You look like you need a break. And I need help. Seems fair. Is there, paperwork? An interview? A background check? Spencer waved a hand. Small town. I'll write your name in the ledger. That's legally binding here. Andrew turned away quickly so Spencer wouldn't see his eyes burn. Don't cry, he told himself. Not over a job. Not over kindness. Oh, one more thing, Spencer added, lowering his voice like he was sharing a secret. There's a spare room upstairs. Used to be my dad's office. If you need a place to stay. Andrew choked. You'd let a stranger live above your shop? Spencer studied him for a long moment. You don't feel like a stranger, he said simply. And Mrs. Sanchez doesn't send me people I shouldn't trust. If only you knew, Andrew thought. But all he said was, thank you. I don't know how to repay you. Spencer smiled, gentle, unassuming, sincere. Stick around, he said. That's enough. He gestured toward the shelves, the counter, the quiet hum of the cafe. Welcome to Books and Brews, Andrew. And for the first time in weeks, standing in a warm little shop with a man who didn't know his past and didn't ask for it, Andrew felt something unfamiliar settle in his chest. Hope. Chapter 2, Meet Spencer Brandt. Andrew had expected the spare room upstairs to be, well, spare. Maybe a drafty attic with creaky floorboards, boxes of forgotten junk, and dust thick enough to write his regrets in. Instead, it was unexpectedly cozy. A single bed sat beneath a window that looked out toward the woods, dressed in a patchwork quilt stitched in muted blues and greens. A narrow desk rested against the wall, a reading lamp perched beside a neat stack of notebooks. Above it, a shelf of battered novels leaned together like old friends. On the windowsill, a small potted plant reached stubbornly toward the light. It doesn't feel empty, Andrew thought. It feels loved. Sorry if it's a little cramped, Spencer said from behind him. His voice softened here, like the room asked it to. I cleared out most of my dad's paperwork, but I kept a few things. He spent a lot of time up here. Andrew ran his fingers lightly over the quilt. It's perfect. Spencer glanced at him, surprised, and something like relief flickered across his face. Yeah, Andrew said, meaning more than just the room. Spencer nodded, then turned and headed back downstairs, footsteps light but familiar, like he'd walked these stairs 1,000 times. Andrew followed, noticing how naturally Spencer moved through the space, as if the building itself had been shaped around him. Or maybe he'd shaped himself around it. Downstairs, Brandt's Books and Brews wrapped around Andrew again with its comforting scent, roasted coffee beans, vanilla, and old paper. The shop hummed quietly, alive even without customers. All right, Spencer said, clapping his hands once. Let's get you officially initiated. The café-bookstore was organized chaos. Tall shelves held a mix of new releases and well-loved paperbacks, spines cracked and soft with age. The espresso machine loomed behind the counter like a mechanical beast, and the pastry case was filled with scones and muffins. Spencer admitted, casually, he baked himself. Andrew barely had time to take it all in before Spencer dropped a stack of books into his arms. Ever shelved books before? Spencer asked. Yes, Andrew said confidently. Spencer raised an eyebrow. Alphabetically? Andrew hesitated. No. Spencer laughed, not loud, but warm, the sound slipping easily into the room. Okay. We'll start there. Come on. He walked Andrew through the aisles, explaining as they went. Genre first, Spencer said, gesturing to a shelf of romance novels with pastel covers and dramatic titles. Then alphabetical. He pointed upward. Except the top shelf. Andrew squinted at it. Why? That, Spencer said solemnly, is my dad's system. Every time I try to reorganize it, a book falls on my head. I've learned to respect its authority. Andrew eyed the shelf like it might strike him next. Noted. By noon, Spencer beckoned him behind the counter. Next trial, he announced. Meet the beast. The espresso machine hissed ominously, as if agreeing. Andrew frowned. Should I be concerned? Yes, Spencer said flatly. Very. He demonstrated each step with practiced ease, grinding beans, tamping them down, pulling a clean shot, steaming milk until it frothed just right. Andrew tried to mimic him. P.S. Steam burst out unexpectedly. Ow, ow, hot, hot. Andrew yelped. Spencer grabbed his wrist instantly and pulled him toward the sink. Cold water. Here. The cool rush soothed the sting, and Andrew let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. You okay? Spencer asked, brows drawn together in concern. Just my pride, died I think, Andrew muttered. Spencer smiled. The beast demands sacrifice. Consider yourself officially initiated. Andrew became suddenly aware of Spencer's hand still wrapped around his wrist, steady, warm, grounding. His chest did something uncomfortable and unfamiliar. Spencer seemed to realize it at the same time and pulled away, clearing his throat. Right. Let's try again. Gently. Like you're asking it nicely. Around 3 o'clock, the bell above the door chimed, and in swept 3 middle-aged women who radiated volume and confidence. There he is, one exclaimed. Spencer, you didn't tell us you hired a handsome helper. Andrew nearly dropped the tray he was holding. Spencer turned bright red. Martha, please. We saw him walking around town earlier, another woman added cheerfully. We had a pool going on where he'd land. Andrew blinked. There were bets? Oh, honey, Martha said, patting his shoulder. In this town? You're the newest attraction. Spencer groaned. Please stop interrogating my employee. I'm not scared, Andrew said quickly. Internally, he was absolutely panicking. Why does everyone know my business? Why does Spencer look unfairly good when he's embarrassed? Stop noticing that. Stop it. By closing time, the shop settled into silence. Golden sunlight streamed through the windows, catching dust motes and turning them into floating stars. Andrew leaned against the counter, tired but oddly content. You survived your first day, Spencer said, locking the door. Barely. You didn't break anything. Yet. Spencer smiled, wiping down the counter, humming softly. Andrew found himself watching without meaning to, the way Spencer moved with ease, the way his presence seemed woven into the walls of the shop. Spencer looked up. What? Andrew flushed. Nothing. Just thinking. About how this place feels like you. About how safe it feels standing here. Well, Spencer said quietly, I'm glad you're here, Andrew. This place has been too quiet since my dad passed. Andrew nodded, something tightening in his chest. Thanks for giving me a chance. Spencer met his gaze, expression open and sincere. Everyone deserves one. And for the first time in months, Andrew believed it. Chapter 3, The Awkward Start. Andrew woke to sunlight slipping through the thin curtains of the spare room, dust motes floating lazily in the air. For a split second, he forgot where he was. There was no marble ceiling above him. No chandelier glittering uselessly overhead. No distant hum of an industrial air conditioning system cooling rooms no one ever really lived in. Instead, there were birds outside the window. The gentle creak of old wood. The scent of coffee drifting faintly upward from below. Right. Brooksville. Brandt's Books and Brews. His new life. His stomach fluttered. Day 2. Try not to embarrass yourself, he told the ceiling. Again. He washed his face in the small bathroom, pulled on the cleanest shirt he owned, and headed downstairs. Spencer was already behind the counter. He wore a soft yellow sweater with the sleeves pushed up, revealing forearms dusted faintly with flour. His hair was pulled into a loose, rebellious bun that looked like it had lost an argument with gravity. Andrew slowed without meaning to. Spencer looked up and smiled. "Good morning, Andrew." "Morning," Andrew said, hoping his voice sounded steadier than he felt. "Sleep okay?" "Yes," Andrew lied. In reality, he'd spent half the night staring at the ceiling, replaying moments he had no business replaying, the way Spencer's hand had felt on his wrist, the quiet laugh in his chest, the warmth of the shop when the lights dimmed. Spencer handed him an apron, neatly folded, embroidered with books and brews. "Ready to face the beast again?" Spencer asked. Andrew groaned. "Do I get hazard pay this time?" "Nope," Spencer said cheerfully. "But you get moral support." The morning rush hit fast. The espresso machine hissed. Cups clinked. Customers chatted over the counter. The air filled with the rich scent of roasted beans. Spencer moved with easy confidence, calling out orders, working the machine like it was an extension of himself. Andrew tried his best to keep up. Latte for Marie?" he called. A man stepped forward. "That's Mark." "Right. Mark. That's what I said." Spencer bit his lip, shoulders shaking. Mark accepted the cup with a sympathetic smile. "You're doing great, kid." Andrew winced. Moments later, he tried frothing milk again. P.S. Steam burst upward, splattering milk across his shirt. He froze. Did I anger it again? Spencer covered his mouth, laughter escaping despite his effort. "You'll get it. Eventually." Eventually, Andrew thought. Like next century. Spencer stepped in behind him, close enough that Andrew felt his presence immediately. "Here," Spencer said softly. "Angle it like this." Andrew nodded, painfully aware of how close they were. He caught the faint scent of vanilla and cinnamon clinging to Spencer's sweater. Their hands brushed, just barely. Electric. Andrew swallowed hard. "Like this?" he asked. "Yeah," Spencer said, steady. "That's it." Andrew focused on the machine with everything he had, pretending his heart wasn't trying to escape his ribcage. After declaring Andrew temporarily banned from the espresso machine, Spencer reassigned him to shelving books. "Think you can survive this part?" Spencer teased, handing him a stack of romance novels. "No guarantees," Andrew said solemnly. The shelves towered above him, the quiet of the bookstore settling into something peaceful. For a moment, Andrew felt almost normal. Not an exile. Not a disappointment. Just a guy doing his job. Then. Thud. A book fell from the top shelf and smacked him squarely on the head. Ow. Andrew glared upward. Was that personal? Spencer rushed over. "Are you okay? Your top shelf has a vendetta." Spencer laughed, unrestrained. "That shelf attacks everyone. My dad's system was hostile. Good to know I'm not being singled out." "Are you bleeding?" "No. But my dignity might be." Spencer reached out automatically, helping him up. Their hands lingered just a second too long before they both pulled back, clearing their throats at the same time. Awkward. Warm. At noon, Spencer locked the front door and flipped the sign to closed. They sat at a small wooden table in the corner, sharing sandwiches Spencer had made. Sunlight streamed through the window, dust floating lazily between them. "So," Spencer said, picking at his crust, "what brought you to Brooksville?" Andrew stiffened. His heartbeat skipped. There it is. I just needed a fresh start, he said carefully. Spencer watched him, not with suspicion, but with quiet understanding. That's kind of what this town is for, Spencer said. It's slow. The people are nosy. But nobody knows anything unless you tell them. Andrew huffed. Reassuring. Spencer smiled. I'm glad you're here. The shop feels less lonely. Something tight twisted in Andrew's chest. Thank you, he said quietly. That means more than you know. Spencer rested his chin on his hand. You're interesting, Andrew. That's usually code for weird. No, Spencer said softly. You just look like someone carrying something heavy. You don't have to carry it alone here. Andrew stared at him. For a moment, he forgot how to breathe. Don't do this, he warned himself. Don't lean into this kindness. He doesn't know who you are. Thanks, Andrew said, voice low. Really? Spencer smiled, gentle and sincere, and the space between them felt warm instead of empty. By closing time, Andrew was exhausted, but it was a good kind of tired. Honest. Earned. As Spencer flipped the sign to closed, he glanced at Andrew. You did well today. I nearly died 4 times. Yesterday was 5, Spencer said. That's improvement. Andrew snorted. Spencer headed upstairs, pausing at the bottom of the steps. Good night, Andrew. Good night, Spencer. When Spencer disappeared from view, Andrew leaned against the counter, smiling softly. Maybe this new life wouldn't be so terrible. Maybe, here, in this quiet town with warm light and gentle hands, he could build something real. Maybe. He was allowed to be happy again. Chapter 4, Routine and Small Joys. Brooksville had a way of waking slowly. Mist lingered over the hills like it had nowhere better to be. The river hummed faintly beyond the trees. Somewhere down the street, bread was pulled from an oven, its warmth drifting through open windows and settling into the town's narrow lanes. Time didn't rush here. It wandered. And Andrew, much to his own surprise, found himself wandering along with it. The bell above the cafe door chimed as Andrew stepped inside, morning sunlight spilling in behind him. Spencer was already there, tying his dark hair into a low ponytail. He wore a soft, worn sweater and moved with the unhurried confidence of someone who belonged exactly where he stood. Morning, Spencer said easily, handing Andrew an apron. We're practicing cappuccinos again today. Yesterday's attempt was enthusiastic. That was intentional, Andrew said, slipping the apron over his head. Abstract foam. Very modern. Spencer snorted. It was chaos in a mug. Andrew grinned despite himself. His laugh makes this place feel warmer, Andrew thought, and immediately tried not to think about that too hard. They started with inventory. Spencer called out items from behind the counter while Andrew scribbled notes, occasionally pausing to stare at something questionable. 2 bags of specialty beans from Colombia, Spencer said. Check. 5 bottles of vanilla syrup. Check. 4 mystery tins. Andrew lifted the dented containers. Why does every cafe have items no one can identify, but everyone's afraid to throw out? Spencer deadpanned. Tradition. Also, my mom says they might be useful someday. Andrew nodded solemnly. Respectable. When they moved on to coffee, Spencer demonstrated again, precise but relaxed, hands steady. Gentle swirl, Spencer said, guiding Andrew's wrist. Not aggressive. Their fingers brushed. Just for a moment. Andrew swallowed, telling himself the warmth flooding his chest was from the espresso machine. When he tried again, his swirl turned into something more chaotic. Foam splattered. Spencer blinked. Were you trying to summon a small cyclone? It's a special skill. It's a disaster. They laughed, the sound filling the space between shelves and soft lamplight. Andrew realized, dimly, that he hadn't laughed like this in a long time. By midday, the town drifted in. Mrs. Harrow, the retired librarian, lectured Andrew about proper alphabetization with alarming passion. The Rojas twins argued loudly over who deserved the last blueberry muffin. Mr. Dawson paid for his coffee using a combination of coins, marbles, and something that might have been a button. Andrew was baffled. Spencer wasn't. "This is Brooksville," Spencer murmured to him. "Nothing makes sense. Everyone makes it work anyway." Andrew smiled, real, unguarded. For the first time in a long while, he wasn't counting minutes until escape. That afternoon, Spencer closed the cafe early. "River walk?" he asked casually, already grabbing his jacket. "Sure," Andrew replied, hoping he sounded equally casual. They followed the stone path by the water, sunlight flickering across the surface like broken glass. Spencer stepped around puddles left from last night's rain, humming under his breath. Andrew watched him without meaning to. He looks like he belongs here, Andrew thought. Like the town recognizes him. Spencer crouched and dipped his fingers into the river. "We used to race paper boats here. Mine always sank." Andrew smiled. "I can't picture you losing at anything." Spencer shot him a look. "Flattery won't save you from coffee duty tomorrow." "I'm serious," Andrew said quietly. Spencer hesitated, just a heartbeat, then looked away, cheeks faintly warm. They walked on in comfortable silence. The next morning, Spencer dragged Andrew out on borrowed bikes. "Come on, city boy," Spencer teased. "Try not to die." "I resent that." Andrew fell within 40 seconds. Spencer skidded to a stop. "Oh my God, are you okay?" Andrew lay sprawled dramatically on the pavement. "Perfectly fine. Just testing gravity." Spencer laughed so hard he nearly tipped over. At the market, vendors greeted them like old friends. "Fresh peaches for your boyfriend?" one called. Spencer nearly choked. "He's not." Andrew cut in smoothly. "We'll take the peaches." Spencer elbowed him hard. "Don't encourage them." Andrew leaned closer. "Embarrassed?" Spencer turned away, but Andrew caught the small, helpless smile tugging at his lips. Over the next few days, routines formed. Spencer always stole the first sip of Andrew's iced lattes, claiming quality control. Andrew groaned dramatically at Spencer's terrible puns. Their hands brushed when they carried trays. Their shoulders bumped when the aisles got too narrow. Andrew found himself leaning closer when Spencer spoke. Listening longer than necessary. And at night, in the small room upstairs, he stared at the ceiling and thought. "I shouldn't feel this comfortable. I haven't felt this safe in years. Why does being near him make everything feel lighter?" Brooksville was doing something to him. Something gentle. Something dangerous. One evening, as they closed the cafe, Andrew paused by the window. Lanterns flickered along the street. People passed by laughing, waving, calling out names. Spencer joined him, towel slung over his shoulder. "You look like you're thinking too hard." Andrew exhaled. "I think I'm starting to like it here." Spencer smiled, soft, genuine. "I'm glad." Andrew looked back outside. For the first time in years, he felt like he wasn't just surviving, he was becoming part of something. And as Spencer hummed quietly behind him, washing cups, Andrew felt that familiar pull again. Belonging. Home. Or maybe, if fate was kind, something more. Chapter 5, Hints of the Past. Morning sunlight pooled across the cafe floor in soft golden patches, warming the wooden counters and half-filled shelves. It was the kind of light that made everything feel slower, kinder, like the day itself was giving permission to breathe. Brooksville liked its mornings gentle. Andrew came downstairs rubbing sleep from his eyes, the familiar weight of the cafe apron already looped over his arm. Spencer always claimed it was too big for him, said it with a smile that implied he found that endearing rather than inconvenient. Spencer was already behind the counter, hair pulled into a messy bun, a faint smudge of flour on his cheek like he'd forgotten it there on purpose. "You're late," Spencer said, though his tone was pure amusement. "I'm literally 5 minutes behind." Spencer scoffed. "In Brooksville time, that's practically tomorrow." He tossed Andrew a towel. Andrew caught it easily, reflexes honed by years of dodging worse things than flying cloth. Spencer laughed at the look on his face. They fell into rhythm quickly. Spencer kneaded dough for the morning pastries, movement steady and practiced, while Andrew arranged mugs and wiped down the counter. He caught himself glancing at Spencer when he thought he wasn't being watched. Once, Spencer caught him anyway. Spencer wiggled his eyebrows. Andrew turned away immediately, face warm. Everything felt normal. Safe. And that was when his phone buzzed. Andrew froze. Unknown number. No photo. "You can run, but you know it won't last." The cafe seemed to tilt around him. A chill crawled up his spine, sharp and familiar, dragging old panic along with it. His thumb trembled as he locked the screen and shoved the phone into his pocket. No name. No explanation. He didn't need one. Of course they'd find me, he thought. I was stupid to believe I could disappear. "Andrew?" Spencer called lightly. "Taste test." Andrew swallowed hard and forced his feet to move. Spencer held out a small piece of dough, leaning close enough that Andrew caught the warmth of him, the faint scent of vanilla and coffee clinging to his clothes. "Open," Spencer said teasingly. Andrew obeyed, opening his mouth, barely registering the flavor. "It's good," he said automatically. "Really good." Spencer tilted his head. "You hesitated." Andrew stiffened. "Did I?" Spencer studied him, eyes soft but observant. "Yeah. You okay?" "Just didn't sleep well," Andrew said. "Not a lie. Just incomplete." Spencer didn't push, but concern lingered in his expression like a shadow that refused to leave. Spencer rolled the dough out again and slid a cutter toward Andrew. "Help me with these. And try not to sacrifice your fingers this time. That was one incident. And we almost had to call Mrs. Harrow to sew you back together." "She wouldn't have." "Andrew," Spencer said solemnly. "That woman knits without looking. You'd be fine." Andrew laughed, a short, genuine sound that eased the tightness in his chest. Flour dusted their aprons as they worked. At some point, Spencer noticed a white streak in Andrew's hair. "Oh wow," Spencer said, reaching up and brushing it lightly. "You look like you aged 50 years. Andrew deadpanned. "Is this how you treat your employees?" "Your past employee status," Spencer said casually. "Your family now." The word landed hard. Family. Andrew's chest tightened before he could stop it. He forced a smile. "Don't think about that. Don't touch that thought." During a quiet moment, Andrew wiped tables while Spencer restocked pastries. His phone felt heavier in his pocket with every passing second. When Spencer turned away, Andrew pulled it out. Caldera City. Front page. Evans conglomerate announces new heir amid silent controversy. His half-brother's face stared back at him, polished, confident, untouched. Below it, unresolved scandal of young socialite still casts shadow over the Evans name. A blurry photo. Him. Andrew's breathing turned shallow. "They're still dragging my name through their mouths." A hand touched his arm. Andrew flinched. Andrew? Spencer's voice was gentle, careful. You okay? You spaced out. Andrew locked his phone immediately. Yeah. Just reading something stupid. Spencer searched his face. You don't have to tell me if you don't want to. Andrew nodded, grateful, and ashamed, for that mercy. The late morning rush arrived like it always did. Andrew attempted latte art and produced something that looked suspiciously like a sad octopus. Spencer peered at it. You know, abstract art is very popular right now. Don't lie to me. You're improving, Spencer said honestly. Just, creatively. Andrew huffed. Spencer leaned closer and whispered, your octopus is kind of cute. Andrew's heart skipped so hard it startled him. Later, when the cafe quieted, Spencer placed a mug of hot cocoa in front of Andrew. You look like you need something warm, Spencer said. Don't argue. Andrew wrapped his hands around the mug. Thank you. Spencer sat beside him, close but not pressing. You don't have to explain everything, Spencer said softly. But you don't have to pretend all the time either. Andrew swallowed. Words crowded his throat. His past pressed against his ribs, desperate to be acknowledged. Maybe one day, he said quietly. Spencer nodded. Okay. Until then, I'll keep making you cocoa. Something warm bloomed in Andrew's chest, fragile, precious. And that was what scared him the most. Because the past didn't just threaten him. It threatened the cafe. The peace. Spencer. Everything Andrew was starting to care about more than he ever meant to. Chapter 6, The Phone Call. Morning arrived wrapped in rain. The sky hung low and swollen, clouds pressing down on Brooksville like a held breath. Outside the cafe, drizzle tapped softly against the windows, fogging the glass from the warmth inside. The sound should have been comforting, gentle, rhythmic, safe. Andrew wished the rest of the day would follow suit. But peace had never stayed long with him. He stepped outside to toss flattened cardboard boxes into the recycling bin, the damp air immediately clinging to his skin. The scent of wet earth and old leaves filled his lungs. Then his phone buzzed. Unknown number. His breath caught. For one fragile moment, he considered ignoring it, letting it ring, letting the past stay where it belonged. Brooksville didn't know Caldera City. Brooksville didn't know the Evans name. But the past had never accepted silence. Andrew answered. Andrew, a voice drawled on the other end, sharp, familiar, cruel. Still alive? His half-brother. Eric. Andrew's fingers tightened around the phone until his knuckles ached. What do you want? Relax, Eric said lazily. Just checking on our favorite embarrassment. Rain slid down the back of Andrew's neck, cold and unpleasant. Then another voice, his mother's, filtered through, clipped and icy. Have you finally grasped how much damage you caused this family? And his father, not bothering to soften the blow, you should stayed gone. It would be easier for everyone. Each word stacked on his chest, heavy and suffocating. I didn't do anything wrong, Andrew said quietly. Eric laughed. Oh, sure. The poor, misunderstood victim. How's exile treating you? Playing barista in some nowhere town? Andrew swallowed. I'm working. I'm fine. Working? Eric scoffed. You've never worked a day in your life. A pause. Then his father again, voice colder than the rain soaking into Andrew's clothes. You should have died that night. It would have spared us the humiliation. The world went hollow. Andrew closed his eyes. 12 years old. 16. 20. Too small. Too quiet. Always wrong. I have nothing to say to you, he managed, voice shaking. You never did, Eric replied pleasantly. Stay gone. That's the only thing you're good at. The call ended. But the silence afterward screamed. Andrew stood in the rain long after the call ended, water dripping from his hair, breath shallow and uneven. Why does it still hurt? Why do they still have this power over me? He pressed a trembling hand to his face. There was no space here to fall apart. No room for screaming or breaking. So he did the only thing he knew how to do. He went back inside. The cafe bell chimed softly. Warm air rushed over him, coffee, cinnamon, baked bread. Spencer looked up from the counter, smile ready on his lips. It faded instantly. Andrew. Andrew tried to push through. He really did. He made a cappuccino without adding espresso. Dropped an entire tray of muffins. Wrote Cindy on a cup meant for Mark. Spencer stared at the cup of foam. There's no coffee in this. Sorry, Andrew muttered, scrubbing the counter like it had personally offended him. I'm fine. You're not, Spencer said quietly. And that's okay. Something in Spencer's voice, steady, calm, made Andrew's throat tighten. When Andrew nearly burned himself again on the espresso machine, Spencer stepped in, gently taking the pitcher from his hands. Stop, Spencer said. Take a break. I can't, Andrew said too fast. I need to keep going. Andrew. His name, low, grounded, cut through the noise. Andrew looked at him. Spencer stepped closer. What happened? Spencer asked softly. Andrew shook his head. It's nothing. You're shaking. His voice cracked. I'm fine. Spencer didn't argue. Instead, he reached out slowly, giving Andrew time to pull away. Andrew didn't. Spencer's fingers laced with his. Warm. Steady. Real. Andrew's trembling eased, not gone, but quieter. Spencer held his hand like it was the most natural thing in the world, thumb brushing slow, grounding circles over his skin. You don't have to explain, Spencer murmured. Not now. Not ever, if you don't want to. But you don't have to carry it alone. Andrew stared at their joined hands. Why does this feel like something I don't deserve? Why does he make it easier to breathe? My family called, Andrew whispered. Spencer's expression softened immediately. He didn't speak but waited for Andrew to continue. They said things. Spencer didn't ask what. Didn't demand details. He just squeezed Andrew's hand tighter. You didn't deserve that, Spencer said. Something in Andrew finally gave way, not loudly, not dramatically. Just a quiet fracture. Spencer stepped closer, free hand resting lightly against Andrew's arm. You're here, Spencer said. And you're not alone. The bell chimed as a customer entered. Spencer didn't let go. Andrew didn't pull away. When the cafe quieted again, Spencer guided Andrew to the back room. Sit, Spencer said gently. Andrew did. Spencer crouched in front of him, still holding his hand like it mattered. Whatever they said, Spencer whispered, don't believe it. Andrew let out a shaky breath. You don't even know everything about me. Spencer smiled, small and certain. I know enough. He brushed his thumb over Andrew's knuckles. I know you're kind. I know you try, even when you're hurting. I know you care more than you let on. Andrew's chest tightened. I know you're worth more than what they made you believe. The words hit deeper than any insult ever had. Andrew's breathing steadied. Thank you, he said quietly. Spencer squeezed his hand once more before letting go. Anytime. And Andrew believed him. For the first time in a long while, the rain outside didn't feel so heavy. Chapter 7, Opening Up. The cafe felt quieter than usual that evening, almost reverent. The warm amber lights glowed softly inside Brandt's books and brews, casting honeyed reflections across wooden shelves lined with dog-eared novels and handwritten recommendation cards. Outside, the rain had gentled into a steady drizzle, tapping the windows in a slow, soothing rhythm, like it was trying not to interrupt. Spencer locked the front door early. The sign flipped to closed, and with it, the rest of the world faded away. "Sit," Spencer said gently, nodding toward their usual corner table near the potted fern. Andrew looked exhausted. Not just tired, but hollowed out, like something essential had been scraped raw since the phone call. He nodded and obeyed without a word. Spencer busied himself making chamomile tea, hands steady despite the tight ache in his chest. He didn't rush. Didn't fill the silence with noise. He let the quiet exist, because Andrew needed it. When Spencer placed the mug in front of him, Andrew stared into the steam as if hoping it could hide him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Andrew inhaled shakily. "Spencer," his voice was rough. "I think you deserve to know the whole story." Spencer sat across from him, leaning in just enough to show he was listening, really listening. Andrew's fingers tightened around the mug. "It wasn't just a family argument," he whispered. "The scandal, the one people talk about, the one that destroyed everything." His throat worked painfully. "I didn't do it." Spencer didn't interrupt. Didn't rush him. Andrew swallowed hard. "They accused me of substance abuse." His eyes shone. "I was framed. I know how that sounds, but it's the truth." Spencer's brows knit with quiet concern. "Andrew." "I've never touched it," Andrew said, voice cracking. "Never. But my family," a bitter laugh slipped out. "They used it. Said I was spiraling. Reckless. An embarrassment. And people believed them." He looked down, jaw tight. "I already had a bad reputation. So it was easy." He dragged a hand through his hair, fingers trembling. "You know how rich families work," he continued. "One mistake gets buried. Two get erased. Three," he exhaled shakily. "Three, and they bury you with it." Spencer's chest ached. "They leaked photos," Andrew said quietly. "Of me passed out. Drugged, I didn't even know it at the time. They arranged reports. Statements. Said I refused rehab. Said I was uncontrollable. Said I was dragging the family name through the mud." Spencer's hand reached out without thinking, resting gently over Andrew's wrist. Andrew looked up, breath hitching at the contact. "That was it," he said softly. "That was the moment everyone turned away. Friends. Neighbors. People I barely knew. And when I tried to defend myself." "No one believed you," Spencer murmured. Andrew nodded. "I'd never worked. I had nothing to prove I was worth anything. I was just a rich failure people enjoyed watching fall." His voice dropped. "So I left, or more precisely I was disowned. I came here because I thought if I stayed quiet enough, I could disappear." He stared at his hands. "They still find me," he said. "Call me. Remind me I'll always be the family's stain." And today, they called again, his voice cracked. "They said I'd crawl back. That I wouldn't survive without them. That I'm incapable of anything." Spencer stood slowly. "Andrew," he said gently. "Look at me." Andrew hesitated, then lifted his gaze, braced for disappointment. Instead, Spencer reached across the table and took his hand, thumb brushing softly over his knuckles. "You are capable," Spencer said firmly. "I see it every day. You show up. You work hard. You care. You learn. This," he squeezed Andrew's hand. "This is your first job, and you're doing well." Andrew's eyes wavered. You believed in me, he whispered. You gave me a chance. Spencer shook his head. I didn't give you anything. You earned your place here. That did it. Andrew broke, not loudly, not messily. Just a quiet exhale as tears slipped free. Spencer moved around the table and sat beside him. When his hand rested against Andrew's back, Andrew leaned into him without hesitation, like his body had been waiting for permission to finally stop holding itself together. I was scared to tell you, Andrew admitted, voice small. I thought if you knew everything, you'd push me away too. I won't, Spencer whispered, close enough now that Andrew could feel his breath. I'm here. Andrew turned slightly, close enough that Spencer could see the gold flecks in his eyes, close enough that their breaths mingled. Why? Andrew asked softly. Why are you still here? Spencer didn't hesitate. Because you deserve someone who listens, he said. And someone who sees you beyond the stories told about you. Andrew's grip on Spencer's hand tightened. Outside, the rain deepened. Inside, the cafe felt warmer than it ever had. Their fingers intertwined naturally, without discussion, without fear. They sat there in silence, close, steady, hearts slowly sinking, while the storm softened beyond the glass. A moment that felt like the beginning of something undeniable. Something gentle. Something that would change everything. Chapter 8, Flirtation and Fun. The cafe felt different lately. Not just familiar, comfortable. The low hum of a jazz record, the scent of cinnamon and coffee beans, the warmth of sunlight, it all wrapped around him gently. And then there was Spencer, moving around him with easy confidence, close enough to be distracting without trying to be. That part Andrew was still learning how to handle. It started with pancakes. I think I've got the batter right this time, Andrew said, holding up a bowl with cautious pride. Spencer leaned over to inspect it, eyebrow lifting. You say that every time. And every time, the pan loses. This time's different, Andrew insisted. I'm practically a professional. 5 minutes later. Whoosh. The sharp smell of burning sugar filled the kitchen as Andrew's attempted flip resulted in something blackened and vaguely tragic. Spencer whipped around. Andrew. It's fine. Andrew said quickly. It's artistic. Abstract. Modern. Abstract isn't supposed to smell like regret, Spencer shot back, laughing despite himself. Andrew flushed, heat creeping up his neck. Spencer noticed, and had to look away before he smiled too much. Later, as they arranged jars of cinnamon and sugar along the counter, their hands brushed. Just for a second. But the spark lingered. Andrew froze like he'd been caught doing something illegal. Spencer caught the look and smirked faintly. Nice reflexes, Spencer murmured. I'm very coordinated, Andrew muttered, ears burning. By midday, talk of the upcoming River Lantern Festival filled the cafe. Spencer flipped through a clipboard behind the counter, humming thoughtfully. They're looking for volunteers, he said. Folding lanterns, tying ribbons. Mostly harmless. I can help, Andrew said immediately. That confidence lasted approximately 10 minutes. By the time they reached the town hall, Andrew was tangled in blue ribbon, a lantern stuck to his elbow, and another dangling precariously from his wrist. Spencer stared. How? He asked carefully. I honestly don't know. Trying not to laugh, Spencer stepped closer to untangle him. His fingers brushed Andrew's neck by accident. Andrew inhaled sharply. Spencer froze. Their eyes met, too close, too sudden. Sorry, Spencer said, flustered. It's okay, Andrew replied quickly. Just, sensitive. Spencer's lips curved into a small, embarrassed smile before a lantern fell behind them with a loud thunk, breaking the moment. They both scrambled to catch it, but the warmth lingered between them anyway. The festival itself bloomed as evening fell. Lanterns glowed along the riverbanks. Stalls buzzed with laughter and conversation. The scent of roasted corn and sugar drifted through the air. Andrew managed to trip over a table leg, spill lemonade on a vendor's display, and get wrapped in string lights, all within an hour. Spencer handled it all with fond patience, occasionally rolling his eyes, occasionally laughing outright. And Andrew noticed something else. People waved at him. Called his name. Thanked him. He felt it settle in his chest, quiet, steady, real. Belonging. As lanterns were released onto the river, Spencer nodded toward the Ferris wheel. "You ever ridden one?" he asked. Andrew shook his head. "My family didn't really do things like this." Spencer hesitated, then smiled. "Want to?" Andrew's pulse jumped. "If you go with me." "Of course." Spencer held out his hand. Andrew took it without thinking. The gondola rose slowly, lifting them above the lights and laughter. The river shimmered below, lanterns drifting like tiny stars. The town looked impossibly small, and safe. Their shoulders brushed. Their hands stayed entwined. Andrew's heart felt too big for his chest. "I'm alone with him. In the sky. And I'm not scared. I feel right." "You okay?" Spencer asked softly. Andrew nodded. "Yeah. More than okay." Spencer glanced at him, lantern light catching in his eyes, and something unspoken passed between them, soft, nervous, hopeful. They didn't kiss. They didn't need to. The moment lingered, suspended in light and quiet understanding. And as the Ferris wheel descended, Andrew realized something with a quiet certainty. This cafe. This town. This man beside him. They weren't just a refuge anymore. They were becoming home. Chapter 9, Confession and First Kiss. The cafe was quiet long after the last customer had gone. Outside, Brooksville streets shimmered beneath a soft drizzle, lamplight reflecting in shallow puddles like scattered gold. Inside, the pendant lights cast a warm, honeyed glow over wooden counters and rows of books, the lingering scent of vanilla and coffee wrapping the space in comfort. Andrew leaned against the counter, exhausted in that good, earned way. His apron was dusted with flour, a faint coffee stain smudged along one sleeve, evidence of another day survived without angering the espresso machine beyond forgiveness. From the back room, Spencer emerged, brushing crumbs from his hands. His hair had come loose from its usual tie, dark strands falling around his face, sleeves rolled up, movements unguarded now that the shop was closed. "Finally done?" Spencer asked, voice teasing, but softer than usual. "Finally," Andrew said, stretching his arms overhead. "I feel like I ran a marathon just carrying pastries and folding napkins." Spencer chuckled. "You kind of did. Your first real job, remember?" Andrew smiled faintly. "Yeah, my first." The words lingered longer than they should have. He glanced at Spencer, chest tightening in that familiar way he'd been trying to ignore all week. "I'm glad it was here," he said quietly. "With you." Spencer's expression softened, something warm flickering behind his eyes. "I'm glad too." Silence settled between them, not awkward, not empty. Charged. Andrew swallowed. "Okay. Don't run. You promised yourself you wouldn't run anymore." His voice caught, and he cleared his throat. "I like being around you. More than I expected. More than I planned to." He exhaled, hands curling against the edge of the counter. "I like you, Spencer." Spencer stilled. For a heartbeat, Andrew wondered if he'd ruined everything. Then Spencer stepped closer. Close enough that Andrew could feel the warmth of him, the faint scent of soap and coffee, the steady calm he always seemed to carry. "You really think I didn't notice?" Spencer murmured, cheeks faintly flushed. Or that I don't feel it too. Andrew's breath stuttered. You do? Spencer nodded once, slow and sure. I do. The world narrowed. Can I? Andrew began, voice barely there. Spencer didn't let him finish. He leaned in. The kiss was gentle, hesitant at first, like both of them were asking permission even as they gave it. Andrew's hands hovered uncertainly before settling at Spencer's waist. Spencer's fingers rested lightly on Andrew's shoulders, grounding, reassuring. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't overwhelming. It felt like a truth finally spoken without words. When they pulled back, foreheads nearly touching, Andrew's heart was racing, but the panic wasn't there. Just warmth. Relief. Something quietly wonderful. Andrew stepped back and promptly bumped into the corner of a chair. Wow. Spencer laughed softly and reached out to steady him. Careful. Sorry, Andrew said, flustered. Apparently confessing feelings affects my balance. That explains a lot, Spencer teased, eyes bright. Andrew grinned, the nervousness melting into something lighter. He reached for Spencer's hand without thinking. Spencer's fingers laced with his easily, like they'd always known how to fit. So, Spencer said, leaning back against the counter beside him, shoulder brushing his. What does this mean? Andrew considered it, then smiled, small, sincere. I think it means, we're us. Spencer's expression softened. I like that. Outside, the rain continued its gentle rhythm. Inside, time felt suspended, safe, warm, unhurried. Andrew pressed a soft kiss to Spencer's temple, barely there. I'm really glad it's you. Spencer looked at him, eyes shining. Me too. And in that quiet, golden-lit cafe, where new beginnings smelled like coffee and books and rain, their hearts settled into something steady and real. Not rushed. Not fragile. Just beginning. Chapter 10, The Night Together. The cafe had long since closed, and Brooksville streets were quiet, the evening soft except for the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze. Somewhere in the distance, laughter drifted from a few lingering festival-goers, a dog barked, and the faint hum of the town created a lullaby of ordinary life. Andrew led Spencer up the narrow staircase to the spare room above the cafe. Their hands brushed in that familiar, almost electric way, sending a warmth up Andrew's arm that had nothing to do with the radiator humming below. You make this place feel warm, he said quietly as he closed the door behind them. His voice trembled slightly, as though saying it aloud made it real. Spencer turned to him, eyes catching the soft glow of a single lamp in the corner. It's the people who make it warm, he said gently, a small, teasing curve at the corner of his lips. And maybe a little bit of good lighting. Andrew laughed nervously, the sound low and uneven. He sank onto the edge of the bed, feeling the weight of everything he'd carried here, his past, his scandal, the first job he'd ever had, the family who had abandoned him, and realizing none of it mattered in this room. Not with Spencer. Spencer hesitated a second before sitting beside him, close enough that their shoulders brushed. The contact was electric but gentle, and Andrew felt his chest tighten. Andrew, Spencer murmured, unsure where to start, his fingers brushing lightly against Andrew's hand. Andrew intertwined their fingers, anchoring himself to the simple, steady warmth. He exhaled slowly. I don't think I've ever felt this safe. Not with anyone. You can tell me anything, Spencer said softly, squeezing his hand, I'm listening. Andrew leaned back against the headboard. Spencer rested against his shoulder. For a long while, they simply breathed together, letting the quiet of the room wrap around them like a blanket. I'm glad I came here, he murmured, voice low. Even though I didn't really choose it at first. I didn't have anywhere else. You had me, Spencer replied softly, and the words felt like a gentle promise, solid and unshakable. Andrew turned to face him, brushing a loose strand of dark hair from Spencer's forehead. I've never felt like this, home, before. Not in a place, not in a city. But somehow, I feel it with you. Spencer's heart fluttered. He smiled, shy but certain. I think I get that. With you. I feel lighter, too. A comfortable silence settled, filled with soft laughter as they exchanged teasing glances, brushed fingers, and whispered jokes about Andrew's disaster with ribbons and lanterns at the festival. Each small gesture, each brush of skin against skin, stitched a quiet intimacy around them. The night stretched on unhurried. Andrew held Spencer's hand, thumb tracing delicate patterns across knuckles. Spencer rested his head against Andrew's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. Words felt unnecessary. Here, in this closeness, they didn't need them. I could stay like this forever, Andrew thought. Safe. Warm. Just, him. Eventually, exhaustion claimed them, but they didn't part, drifting into the kind of sleep that carried both comfort and a quiet anticipation. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, painting the floorboards in warm stripes. Birds chirped outside, their melodies mingling with the faint aroma of coffee Andrew had already started brewing. Spencer stirred, blinking at the light. Andrew's hand rested lightly on his shoulder, and he offered a sleepy smile. Morning, he said softly. Morning, Spencer replied, voice still husky with sleep. They moved together to the small table by the window, the morning light spilling over the cups of coffee steaming between them. Andrew poured 2 cups, hands a little unsteady, and passed one to Spencer. Their fingers brushed, and they both caught the contact, smiling sheepishly. They sat side by side, sipping quietly, exchanging shy, lingering glances. Outside, the town slowly woke, bakery shutters rattling, neighbors chatting, a dog barking in the distance. It's nice, Andrew murmured, watching the curling steam rise from his cup. This. Us. Here. Spencer nodded, gaze soft. It is. Feels like home. Andrew reached for Spencer's hand, holding it gently over the table. I think I could get used to this. To you. Spencer's smile warmed the room. I hope so. Because I don't plan on going anywhere. For a long while, they simply sat, letting the morning unfold. Birds sang, streets stirred, coffee warmed their hands, and for the first time in years, Andrew felt peace he hadn't dared hope for. Here, with Spencer, he was not a scandal, not a failure, not a name tainted by whispers. He was just Andrew. And for the first time, that was enough. Chapter 11, Choosing Family. The morning sun spilled across the cafe windows, turning the polished floorboards into streams of gold. Brooksville had woken slowly, the quiet hum of small-town life carrying through the streets, a dog barking somewhere down the block, the faint clatter of shutters opening, the smell of fresh bread drifting from the bakery down the road. Andrew stood behind the counter, arranging pastries, his first cup of coffee cooling at his side. He took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of sunlight on his skin and the comforting rhythm of routine. He glanced at Spencer, perched on the edge of a chair nearby, scribbling plans for the weekend's mini-festival in a notebook filled with sketches and little notes. He smiled softly. This is home. The thought came without sting now, without the pull of guilt or longing. He didn't need approval from the family that had abandoned him. Their calls, their taunts, the whispers in the papers, they held no power over him anymore. Not here. Not with Spencer. Not with the community that had already embraced him. Hey, daydreamer, Spencer said, looking up from the notebook with a teasing grin. Planning to stack pastries all day, or are you finally going to help me organize the festival booth? Andrew chuckled, brushing a stray crumb off the counter. I can do both, you know. Multitasking master. Spencer raised an eyebrow. Multitasking master? Last time you called yourself that, you spilled lemonade on a vendor's table. Andrew smirked. That, my dear, was artistic expression. Spencer rolled his eyes, but a corner of his mouth twitched upward. Sure. Picasso of clumsiness. Still charming, even when he's ridiculous, Andrew thought, feeling a quiet warmth bloom in his chest. By late afternoon, the town festival was in full swing. Lanterns hung along the streets, tables stacked with local crafts, and the air was thick with the smell of roasted corn, baked treats, and laughter. Andrew moved among the crowd with ease now, carrying a tray of coffee, joking with townspeople, even helping a group of kids tie their balloons. A little girl tugged at his apron. Are you the new guy who's friends with Spencer? Andrew knelt down, smiling gently. I'm Andrew. And yes. I'm friends with Spencer. And with all of you too. The girl giggled, shyly hugging him before running off. Andrew watched her go, feeling a warmth he hadn't realized he'd missed. I belong here. I'm part of this. Spencer sidled up beside him, elbow brushing his. See? They like you. All of you. Not the stories your family told. Andrew's chest lifted, heart swelling. I know. And I like all of them. And you. Spencer's cheeks flushed, a soft pink rising under his tanned skin. He nudged Andrew lightly. Careful, that's dangerously close to being romantic. Andrew grinned. Maybe that's the plan. Later, back in the cafe, the two of them sat with their feet propped on the counter, sipping warm mugs of tea. Spencer leaned against him, notebook open with sketches and notes about a potential cafe expansion, a small reading nook, weekend workshops, maybe local music nights. You think we could do it? Spencer asked quietly, tracing a pencil along a margin. Andrew watched him, the curve of his smile, the way his eyes lit up when he talked about something he loved. I don't just think we could. I know we could. Together. Spencer nudged him playfully, though affection shone in the gesture. Wow, that's serious. Don't tell me the first scandal-ridden boy from Caldera suddenly became inspirational. Hey, Andrew said with a mock-offended frown, I may have been jobless, chaotic, and generally a mess, but I've got heart. And apparently, barista skills. Spencer laughed, bumping him lightly with his shoulder. Yeah, chaotic with heart. Perfect combination. Andrew's gaze lingered on him, heart quietly pounding. This is what I wanted. What I need. As the sun dipped behind the hills, the cafe emptied again. Lanterns on the counter flickered, casting soft, golden shadows. Andrew leaned back in his chair, watching Spencer pack up his notebook, humming softly. The knots of fear, anxiety, and longing from his past had loosened. Here, with him, he was safe. Happy. Loved. This is family, Andrew thought. Not blood. Not names or money. Family is the people you choose, the people who make you feel at home. Spencer looked up, catching his gaze. Andrew smiled, and Spencer returned it, a quiet understanding passing between them. Coffee tomorrow morning? Spencer asked. Definitely, Andrew replied. And maybe pancakes this time. Artistic expression included. Spencer laughed, shaking his head. Fine, but no flaming pancakes, please. Andrew grinned, heart full. Deal. The lights dimmed softly, the smell of coffee lingering in the cafe. Outside, lanterns glowed faintly along the street, mirroring the warmth and light Andrew felt inside. And for the first time in a long time, he was at peace. With Spencer. With Brooksville. With himself. He had found family. He had found home.